Welcome to Hot Drama TV.
There was a time when Liu Yuning had no spotlight, no carefully planned image, and no audience waiting for him. Before the red carpets and drama posters, before his name appeared on trending lists, there was only a man singing into a microphone, watching a phone screen glow in the dark. He sang not because millions were listening but because no one was. And that is where his story truly begins. Night after night, he sang in places where success was never guaranteed. There were no promises, no shortcuts, no one telling him that it would all work out. Yet he kept going. Not chasing fame, not chasing applause, but holding on to the only thing he had. His voice. Most success stories begin with opportunity. His began with endurance. When people finally noticed Liu Yuning, it wasn't because of his appearance or a carefully crafted persona. It was because of the way his voice sounded like it carried a past. Deep, textured, and weighted with emotion, it felt lived in. When he sang about longing, it felt personal. When he sang about heartbreak, it felt remembered. Audiences didn't just hear him. They recognized something familiar in him. Slowly, almost quietly, his voice began appearing everywhere. In drama soundtracks, in emotional turning points of stories where words alone were not enough. Without realizing it, millions had already let him into their lives. In an industry obsessed with instant stardom, Liu Yuning's rise felt different. It was slow, visible, unpolished. His journey unfolded in public, with every step open to judgment. He was never introduced as a perfect idol, never shielded by illusion. People saw the progress, the uncertainty, the effort. And because of that, every achievement felt earned. Every milestone felt deserved. His success didn't feel handed to him, felt worked for. When he stepped into acting, doubt followed closely behind. He didn't fit the traditional image of a leading man. He didn't rely on dominance or exaggerated charm. Instead, he chose restraint. His performances didn't shout emotion. They let it breathe. Pain lingered in his silences. Strength existed alongside vulnerability. In roles like the prisoner of beauty, what stood out was not power but presence. Not perfection but humanity. Slowly, audiences realized he wasn't trying to look like a star. He was trying to feel real. As attention grew, Liu Yuning made a choice many in the industry do not. He did not lean into rumors. He did not build fame on spectacle or manufactured intimacy. He allowed silence to exist. He let work speak louder than headlines. In a culture where attention is currency, his restraint became a statement. He didn't ask to be believed. He earned respect. Fame changed his life, but it did not reshape his core. He remained grounded, careful with his words, grateful rather than entitled. He spoke of his past without romanticizing it, and acknowledged his fans without depending on them. There was no illusion of invincibility, only a quiet confidence built by surviving uncertainty, not avoiding it. Trends move fast. Stars rise and fall just as quickly. Yet Liu Yuning remains. Not because he is the loudest or the most flawless, but because he feels real in a world that often isn't. People don't just admire him, they trust him. And trust, once earned, lasts longer than hype. Liu Yuning is different because he represents a kind of success that rarely goes viral but always endures. Success without shortcuts. Fame without arrogance. Growth without forgetting where it started. His story reminds us that not every journey needs to be fast to be meaningful, that some voices take time to be heard, and that some stars shine brightest not because they demand attention, but because they deserve it. And perhaps that is why, in an industry filled with noise, Liu Yuning's quiet rise continues to echo the loudest. And even now, when his name appears on stage screens and award lists, there is still something about Liu Yuning that feels untouched by noise. He stands there not as someone who has conquered the industry, but as someone who has learned how to survive inside it. Success did not erase the memory of uncertainty. It sharpened it. Perhaps that is why he never treats applause as something guaranteed. He knows how easily silence can return. There is a quiet discipline in the way he works. Each role, each song, each public appearance feels measured, not calculated for attention but considered with care. He understands that visibility is temporary, but credibility is not. So instead of rushing forward, he builds slowly, layer by layer, allowing time to test what remains when excitement fades. This patience, rare in a fast-consuming industry, is part of what keeps audiences coming back. They sense that he is not performing a version of himself for the moment, but constructing something meant to last. What truly separates Liu Yuning from many of his contemporaries is not talent alone, but awareness. He seems to understand the fragility of fame. He has seen what happens when attention arrives before readiness, when expectations grow faster than skill. And so he chooses control over exposure, craft over spectacle, depth over speed. In doing so, he resists becoming a product designed for consumption. Instead, he remains an artist shaped by experience. For fans, this creates a different kind of connection. They do not feel invited into a fantasy. They feel invited into a journey. One where growth is visible, mistakes are acknowledged, and progress is real. This transparency does not weaken his image. It strengthens it. Because people are not drawn to perfection, they are drawn to persistence. There is also something profoundly modern about his appeal. In an era where many feel exhausted by curated lives and constant performance, Liu Yuning represents something grounding. He does not pretend that success is effortless. He does not hide the weight behind achievement. And in doing so, he gives permission for ambition to coexist with vulnerability. As time goes on, his career no longer feels like a rise. Feels like a presence. Steady. Enduring. Unforced. He does not dominate conversations, yet he remains part of them. He does not chase relevance, yet relevance follows him. This is not the result of luck but of alignment between who he is, what he does, and how he chooses to be seen. And maybe that is the quiet truth at the center of his story. Liu Yuning is not different because he avoided struggle. He is different because he allowed struggle to shape him rather than harden him. He carried it into his voice, into his performances, into the way he stands in front of an audience without pretending to be more than he is. In the end, his story is not about becoming famous. It is about becoming stable in a world that rewards instability. It is about choosing substance in an environment that often prefers surface. And it is about understanding that the most lasting form of success is not how loudly you are noticed, but how deeply you are remembered. That is why Liu Yuning remains. Not as a moment but as a meaning. And perhaps years from now, when new names replace old headlines and trends move on as they always do, Liu Yuning's story will still be told. Not because it was loud, but because it was honest. Because it reminded people that growth can be quiet, that strength can be gentle, and that not every meaningful journey needs to arrive in a rush. His presence leaves behind something rare in entertainment today. A sense of calm. The feeling that someone can rise without losing themselves, that success does not always demand reinvention, and that staying true can still carry you forward. In a world constantly asking for more, faster, louder, Liu Yuning chose to be steady. And that choice, more than anything else, may be his greatest achievement.